Folks, it is February. Loaded show here. Hoops edition of College Sports Now. Matt Norlander from CBS Sports. Eye on college basketball with us. Joe Ovies, OG Triangle Media, is going to join us in about 30 minutes. Duke UNC over the weekend. Probably not even a top 10 storyline in basketball.
Nope.
Legitimately. Things got absolutely bonkers on Saturday. Just to kind of zoom out a little bit, we'll run through these games. 7 of the top 12 teams in the AP poll lost on Saturday. Over the weekend, Norlander, you had 12 of the top 25 teams go down. And, oh, by the way, in the wee hours of Saturday night / Sunday morning, you had a blockbuster NBA trade, which featured one Luka Doncic going to the Lakers. Yes, that franchise out in L.A. In exchange for Anthony Davis. So just one of those weekends where, like, basketball got into the liquor cabinet. I don't really know how else to describe it. I woke up Sunday morning wanting to watch highlights. Instead, I got Brian Windhorst takes for like 30 minutes. It was just one of the basketball, college basketball. You tell me if I'm wrong. It felt like it just got absolutely snowed under with what happened on Sunday with the NBA trade. We got some Grammy takes as well to wrap up the show. So we got a lot to get to, my man. How we living?
Good. Snowed under is a perfect term. We got about 4 inches overnight as we speak right now. This show is getting me out of snow shoveling duty. My wife and 2 kids are outside right now. Delayed opening. I feel like we've done 6 or 7 shows this season, and this has to be the 4th one affecting at least one of us through weather and snow and a delayed opening or something happening. One thing or the other. Our kids, one of our kids, if not both of our kids, are home at a point when we would not have otherwise expected. So we're going just fine.
You can tell your family, hey, listen, y'all got to shovel the driveway because Dad's got to go talk college basketball?
I got to go upstairs to the office and do some work. Yeah. And they're good with it. And my little one's already, he's got the sled out there. We don't exactly have the biggest hill, but he's making the most of it. Snowed under is a good way of putting it, though, because I did think that, going into the weekend, we said A- slate. It went even beyond that expectation. And then, call it 11:45 on Saturday night. It really felt like coming out of this weekend. For the first time this season, college basketball would be the lead story, even with the Super Bowl buildup and all that stuff that gets going this week. And then the Luka Anthony Davis trade absolutely just took over, as it should, because it's unprecedented. But we're here to talk about college hoops and everything that went down. It was, come on, man, this was just an awesome day. I did feel going in that it was going to be a pretty great Saturday. And it got wilder than that. So where do you want to start? And what was your biggest takeaway or takeaways from what we got? Primarily Saturday. Sunday we can get to a little bit. There wasn't too much, but there was a notable upset and an interesting game. But most of the damage here was done on Saturday.
We start on Saturday in the Big 12, which was just a bananas conference slate, and we'll get through all of those results. Game of the day was in H-Town, okay? And it was a game in which, the mentions were blowing up, Norlander. I've got audio. You know what? I've got audio. I will play the audio, and we'll talk about the game.
Christian Anderson for Texas Tech. He cannot move on that baseline. Tugler doing jumping jacks. Anderson craning back and forth. Throws it way up in the air. It's tipped. A 3 for Roberts. No good. Goliath, you are on the ground. The Red Raiders win 82-81. Despite all the odds, Texas Tech wreck 'em forever.
Let's go. Jeff Haxton, Red Raider Sports Network from Learfield on the call.
Hold on, that call. Now that call is really good. Goliath on the ground is a Final Four level line.
How about that?
And it's really hard to win at Houston. You end a 33-game winning streak, so it was at equal parts appropriate, but also felt like you don't want to use that in the first week of February. Save it for a bigger moment. But I did love it. That was a good call.
That is, context here. Now, again, context. You mentioned the 33-game home win streak that is no longer, okay? Cougs, tough to beat at the Fertitta Center. They go down, but Texas Tech gets it done without their best player, JT Toppin, who gets ejected in this game. Less than 4. We're not even at the first media timeout of the game. JT Toppin leads Texas Tech in both points and rebounds. He is ejected for a bogus flagrant 2 call that also leads to the head coach, Grant McCasland, getting tossed, rung up, ejected from the game. Norlander, less than 4 minutes in to the first half. We're not even at the under 16 media timeout. Toppin, gone. McCasland, gone. Now, why does this hit home for us? Well, if you listened to the show last week, we had Grant McCasland and his donkeys on the program. There were multiple people that mentioned that the photo that he sent you, him posing with his donkeys, was actually him posing with the refereeing crew from this game. Because, I mean, listen, it's tough to be an official. Nobody wants to be an official at any level. It's hard work.
Well, I mean, there are people that want to do it. That's why they do it. These people aren't being forced
I don't
to
think
do it
so,
because they
man.
will.
It is tough to recruit officials in this day and age.
It is, and this is that's just a bigger issue sport wide. The athletes are too good, and the pool of candidates to officiate games isn't as good as it needs to be. That said, there are still really great officials, but we don't have our best and brightest across the board, unfortunately.
That's because these guys aren't full-time employees. There are ways to fix this, okay? How about these guys not be like lawyers or, insurance salesmen as like their actual job, and then they just moonlight as a college basketball
Moonlight
official for 4
seems a
months out of the
little
year?
bit dismissive.
These guys are
they got-
grinding. Look, they're grinding.
yeah.
Like 5-6 games in a week. I get it. They're grinding.
Sometimes 7 games in a week.
That said, bad officiating, bad call. Nonetheless, as you heard in the audio from Jeff Haxton, Red Raiders overcome the adversity. They get it done. Gutsy stuff, 82-81 in overtime. And that was just one of a handful of results in the Big 12 that was just, I mean, it kind of flipped the sport on its head early on Saturday. It was one of those days. So what did you make of the Red Raiders? Because you've been talking to me for weeks about how this is either an under-the-radar team or some sort of a metrics darling. I think at this point, they're not under the radar, Texas Tech, because of what they just did to Houston. But I think if you don't know, now you know type of thing for what the Red Raiders are doing in that league.
That's a 17-4 team now. Part of why I wanted to have McCasland on last week was his team was quality, really good record, rated highly, and hadn't necessarily received the appropriate amount of pub. And that was a well-timed guest get because it was so out of character for him to lose his mind like that. But I credit him for standing up for his player. I was texting him when he got tossed. I know for a fact this dude was looking at his phone, but I also know he was getting, minimum, like a lot of his coaching buddies were probably coaching. So, but a minimum of like 70 to 80 texts when that happened, like no doubt about it. So
while watching the game in the locker room with his best player,
correct,
which is just a bizarre set of circumstances.
That is.
Because it happens
normally
so
when a guy
early
gets
in
tossed,
the game.
he's back there solo. You might have like a support staffer in there, but Grant and JT just kind of hanging out.
For 2 hours because they got tossed at the it was 16 and change left in the first half. Just a crazy scene.
He sent out a photo of him and JT after the game, and then he's like, you got to find a way to get it done. And I was like, where were you during halftime? I needed you. I needed the room temperature then. But credit to Texas Tech. Chance McMillan had a really, really good game. They've got a point guard named Elijah Hawkins, who was one of the better pickups in the portal. He ranked as like a top 10 point guard in the country last season when Minnesota was above average, but Minnesota got pilfered in the portal, and it's all coming to be. Grant did say on our show that he thought Darian Williams was going to give it a go and be able to play. That indeed wound up being the case. He had 12 or 13 points. That was a good win. Let's keep it moving in the Big 12 though, because it was noisy. Houston Texas Tech was the best game of the weekend. The most shocking result of the month. We're 3 days in, but maybe of 2025 so far was Kansas State beating Iowa State the way that it did. It was absurd. 80-61. Iowa State was a 15.5 point favorite. Kansas State wins by 19. And here we have back-to-back 2 Big 12 teams with the 2 longest home game winning streaks in the country. They evaporate on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, Hilton Magic, not so much. 29-game win streak, no longer. And now Iowa State. Like, the thing about the Houston Texas Tech result is that the Red Raiders are a tournament team. Kansas State is not a tournament team. And yet here they are going to Iowa State and just cruising wire to wire. We had a couple of those, like fluke results over the weekend, wins over AP top 25 teams, Matt, who the winner isn't even in the NCAA tournament discussion, which, by the way, now that it's February, don't think I didn't take a peek at Jerry Palm's bracketology this morning before the show, because you know I did.
Allowed, although I don't think he has updated it since Saturday's slate.
Well,
so
that's fine. That's fine. And
Okay.
and Jerry, if you're listening,
it's
time.
not. We're not. He's
time.
not updating the bracket every day.
I'm not saying you need to do it every day,
we've
but it's
got what,
Monday.
6
Listen,
weeks until Selection Sunday.
It's Monday morning, okay? It's time to punch the clock. Like, what are we doing? I got a couple coffee shops. Like, I work in downtown Winston-Salem, which isn't exactly a booming metropolis.
The Pede, of course.
But, like, there are coffee shops that open at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. And it's like, listen, if you're a coffee shop
What is that
owner,
about? That can't be a
you
thing.
can't be a legitimate coffee shop and not be open on Monday mornings by 7 a.m. Like, what are you doing? At that point, you're paying rent for a downtown. Anyway, Kansas State beats Iowa State. It was impressive. How about Baylor? Like, again, let's keep it in the Big 12. Baylor, we talked about this game on Thursday when we're doing the weekend preview. It was like Kansas going to Waco. At some point, like, Baylor's going to need to start, like, waking up. Like, they got to get it done. They need some wins. They trailed by 21 points in this game and ended up winning by double digits. They scored 60 points in the second half, pull away from Kansas to win 81-70. And I'm not going to say that this is what a game, Matt, and maybe you can disagree, that Baylor had to have, but this is part of a resurgence here for Baylor that they certainly needed at some point. And now you look at a Kansas team that's starting to kind of wobble a little bit. And who does Kansas play on Monday night? Iowa State. So both the Clones and the Jayhawks coming off of tough weekend losses. This game is at the Fog. It's 9 o'clock on ESPN tonight. We can talk about that a little bit later in terms of who you like between Iowa State and KU, but pretty shocking stuff to see Kansas just melt like this on the road in Waco Saturday.
It was an absolute melt. If you go back to the 1 minute mark of the first half, from that point on, Baylor doubled up KU 64-32, which is outrageous. 81-70 final. Baylor's now 14-7 and has been able to win 3 of its past 4. It lost in overtime at BYU last Tuesday. You can make a case it should have won that game. I mean, you can make an easy case. So Baylor's 1 result away from a 4-game winning streak. And, the Bears they're talented, but they won this game without their best talent. VJ Edgecombe got hurt early in the second half. He didn't return. And in stepped Robert Wright III, who had his best game in a Bears uniform, going for 24 points, 6 assists, pair of steals, and really propelling. Norchad Omier also, I think, had 18 and 16. He was also really good. So good on Baylor. It's got to go. Speaking of Texas Tech, it plays at Texas Tech on Tuesday. So that's a really fascinating and interesting game. The Kansas end, I did write a column. I was in studio for CBS Sports HQ on Saturday, and that's always a blast. We got a good green room type setup there with a bunch of different TV options, and you can watch one game on like a regular size TV, or you can break it out so it's like 4 TVs, but it's one screen for one game, and so we're getting all these games were going on.
What's the snack situation look like in the green room? Like what are we offering?
The snack situation is actually you take a right out of the green room, you take another right, then you go down a hallway, and then you take a left, and then you get into our kitchen area. And if you want the specifics here, I can tell you there were Goldfish bags, Famous Amos cookies, Rice Krispie treats, Starburst, mini Snickers, trail mix, Skinny Pop. I mean,
Okay.
there's no shortage of snack situation going on down there.
Craft service for those in the industry. That's what it's referred to as. Craft service.
Craft service.
That's what it's called. That's what it was called when I worked at HBO. It was craft service. Okay, you got to load up the table.
Yeah, this wasn't. This is more like, someone goes and buys a whole bunch of snacks and they stock it up every week, and there's even more. But that's a quick look at what we were working with. Anyway, the point is this: it's always awesome to be able to follow and focus on all these games. And then in between that, like I do anywhere from 3 to 5 big segment hits over the course of 7 hours or so on a Saturday. But I also felt compelled on such a busy day. I did want to, write something and get something out there. And I thought that Kansas losing was the most meaningful result of a pretty busy Saturday.
Really?
You can read that at cbssports.com. Kansas blew its biggest lead in school history, 21 points. It is now tied for 5th in the Big 12 at 6-4. And Kansas last season was a disappointing team. It was the preseason number 1 team. It got a 5 seed or 4 seed. And let me check this real quick. I like to be factually accurate here. Last season, Kansas got a 4. So Gonzaga was the 5 in its region. Didn't make the Sweet 16. Kansas has never made the Sweet 16 when it was a preseason number 1. And guess what? Just a few months back, KU was the preseason number 1 team in the country. It is underwhelming again. This Iowa State game on Monday night is the only game worth watching on Monday. That carries a lot of urgency for both teams. And yeah, KU, I mean, it really, earmuffs kids. It truly shit the bed. It was
Norlander earning the E today.
It was a disappointing split open and melt situation. Big time.
Nice. Very good.
Big time. And if you want more, I detail a lot of that in the column, but I'd keep an eye to see how much Flory Badunga plays on Monday against Iowa State. He's not the answer to everything that ails Kansas, but I think he's got to play a lot more than he has, and maybe that can get them on the return there. I know we got to keep cruising here because Ovies is coming. I want to know if you have any thoughts on Bobby Hurley pulling his team off the floor, refusing to shake hands. I mean, even I think I saw it was Jack Murphy's the lead assistant for Arizona, so I think Jack Murphy was technically closest on the court to Bobby Hurley and was just kind of give him a wave. We get it. And Hurley, not even waving, just gave him the 2-arm dismissal. He's like, get the F out of here. Any thoughts on that? And any thoughts on everything else that went down in the wild Big 12?
I think it's great. I mean, Territorial Cup, emotions run high. Arizona State. Remember the Herm Edwards presser? What was this, 5-6 years ago? Just classic lines. Territorial Cup. Teddy Bruschi, watch out with them Devils. Yeah, phenomenal stuff.
Don't remember this at all, but I'll let you keep rolling.
You don't remember the Herm Edwards introductory press conference at ASU? God, It's one of the classics. Regardless, Zona's starting to heat up a little bit. Caleb Love specifically, which is kind of ironic considering what North Carolina is going through right now. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, the Hurleys are hotheads, man. They can't handle emotions very well. It's genetics. It's tough. But watch out for Arizona, man. They're starting to heat up, and I think that's fun because they were certainly disappointing in the non-conference portion of the schedule. Big 12's fascinating, man. You mentioned it, Norlander. Kansas is struggling. You look at the standings, Kansas isn't a top 5 team in the Big 12 this year.
They're not playing like it right now. They can. I think they'll. Myself is so good. Hartzell. By the time we get to the start of the Big 12 tournament and you've printed out that black bracket that you love so much, I think Kansas will comfortably.
Now. Yeah.
It'll be registering as one of the 5 best teams in the league. Right now, I'd have it 6th overall. Right now, I'd have it 6th.
Yeah, you're just used to seeing them with a double bye in that tournament bracket, and that's just not going to be the case this year unless things change. Because you got Texas Tech, Iowa State, Houston, Zona, BYU, Baylor. I mean, it's a fun league. It was last year too, but obviously the SEC is kind of the strength of the college basketball world. So that was your take, or that was your kind of whip around on the Big 12. Other notable results. I know you want to go to Rupp. So let's just get it out of the way. Arkansas, Kentucky, all the hype, all the pomp and circumstance. And then Arkansas goes and wins by 10 as, I believe, a double-digit underdog to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Will it turn around Arkansas's season? Maybe, maybe not.
No,
Norlander says no. But still, a pretty impressive statement from Cal, who obviously wins in a building that he coached in for over a decade, but also he's got a handful of former Kentucky players that had to go back into Rupp, and those guys put on for the Razorbacks. So Arkansas gets a win. It's just their 2nd conference win of the season, but a pretty emphatic statement against a Kentucky team that just kind of came out flat, man. They just didn't really have it on Saturday night. So Nice win for Arkansas.
Yeah, they Kentucky lacked urgency in a way that I was not expecting, honestly. Body language was not there. Arkansas was ready. It was able. It had alacrity. And those three players that were in Kentucky uniforms a season ago, Zvonimir Visic, DJ Wagner, Adu Thero, combined for 52 of Arkansas's 89 points.
That'll do. Yeah.
Very memorable night. Well, maybe Arkansas is going to go on to, just be awful and not finish in the top 12 of a 16-team conference. That could well be the case, but we will remember that Calipari at minimum was able to go back into Rupp and get his a win in his first trip there on that end. Any thoughts on the general coverage, leading up to it in the hours there? And I Kentucky fans booed more than they cheered, but it wasn't overwhelming. It did seem like, if I had to put a number on it, 60-40, maybe 62-38.
Really? I didn't hear that. I thought it was more like 80-20. You heard 40% cheering?
Well, I'll also say this. Felt like the sound mixing wasn't the best. Okay. And it wasn't just me saying this. As we were watching it in the green room, there was a feeling as though the sound was not as great as it could have otherwise been. And God love Jimmy Dykes, but I feel like he talked over most of it. So that also affected my impression of it.
I don't like taking shots at like TV media personalities, but I'm going to, because the lead college basketball crew for the SEC. It's Jimmy Dykes and what's my guy's name?
Ravitch.
Carl. Yeah, Kentucky Carl. Carl Ravitch. That's compared to Fox's A team, compared to CBS's A team, CBS's B team, CBS's C team. That's Disney's got to do a little better there. Kentucky Carl is just it's not. And I say that because he does every Kentucky game. It's just not great. We got to do come on. We got to do a little bit better. I like Jimmy Dykes, but yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to get into it. It was. I
mean, you're getting soft in your old age, Hartzell. So.
I understand. ESPN sent their A team to Cameron, okay, for Duke UNC.
I know,
which
also created a thing this weekend in terms of. I don't agree with a lot of this, but it is objectively true that a lot of people pointed their arrows at ESPN for not going to Kentucky, hosting Arkansas for just game day in general. Seth Greenberg, and he seems to be taking more and more every week. On a week that should have been mostly about the games and the storylines. It felt like a lot of people were pointing their discontent at ESPN. I guess whatever, but I couldn't help notice it felt prominent.
When you're the worldwide leader, listen, It wasn't just, I joked about turning on television Sunday morning wanting to watch some highlights. I could have gone to CBS Sports HQ. I could have gone to ESPN. It didn't matter. Everyone was talking about the Luka trade.
I know.
It was just,
HQ did keep, I think, about 20 minutes of our college hoop stuff in it, what we call the wheel. So the hour that repeats and basically ran from midnight until 10 a.m. on Sunday. You would have gotten some, but yes, the Luka AD stuff absolutely took over.
It's just a weird, just kind of like a weird weekend. And for people like my dad who log off on the weekends, people are waking up on Monday morning and being like, "I'm sorry, Luka, what? Yeah. He's a Laker?
I know.
What's that going to look like?" And by the way, people need to chill with the Luka's fat, he's lazy, he's out of shape thing. He's European, man. Do you watch NBA all these European guys, they don't look like Kevin Willis, okay? And that's a throwback reference.
Willis,
but
what
remember Kevin Willis? That dude was the most chiseled, jacked dude in the league.
I remember.
For a while. He was 45 years old. He still looked just like Adonis out there.
I remember Kevin Willis.
Europeans are they got dad bods, man. It doesn't matter. They'll still go out there and get you 30 and 20. They like to drink beer. They probably smoke cigarettes too.
I saw someone say I could see Luka coming up the court with the ball and dribbling in one hand and a gravy boat in the other, and I still would never trade him, which is a great line. Let's keep it moving because we got Ovies soon here.
Yes, Joe Ovies is going to join us in 5 minutes. He was at Cameron, so we'll
save all the
UNC.
Got to talk Tennessee. beat Florida by 20. Florida beat Tennessee 3 weeks ago by 30. Tennessee didn't have two of its starters. Sagahai Ziegler, Igor Milicic both did not play in this game, and yet it didn't matter. Culture kind of win. I thought there were two notable culture wins, which can be something of a fallback trite phrase, but sometimes it bears to be true. And that was UConn beating Marquette on the road without Liam McNeely, solo ball going off, and Tennessee at home not even giving Florida a chance. They were in command of that game and gave the Gators their most humbling defeat of the season. Credits to Rick Barnes. I still think, although Auburn's almost certainly probably going to win the SEC, I still think that Tennessee is in that group of national title contenders that hails from the SEC, with Auburn, with Alabama, probably with Florida. I have not had Kentucky in that group for a bit here, and this weekend only reinforced that. But Tennessee deserves to be there, especially when fully healthy. I was mighty impressed by that.
I mean, how could you not be more impressed just because you put them up against each other by what UConn did on the road? Like, you went to Marquette. You went wire to wire. You jumped on those guys early. You led by double digits almost the whole game.
And they did it, and they played sloppy. UConn had 25 turnovers and won by 8 points on the road. I mean, and Marquette only had 8 turnovers itself. Oh, interesting game there. And that was a big win for Dan Hurley and his program to be able to go and get that. And what's a big week? UConn hosts St. John's. Its next game is Friday. St. John's got a win on Saturday, early afternoon, CBS Sports Network tip. They beat Providence on a last possession shot by Kaderi Richmond to win by 2 after they blew a big lead. So a lot of really big, fun, interesting things happening right now in the Big East. And Saturday was just so reaffirming for college hoops fans because it was one interesting result after another, compelling game after another. You had even stuff that, gets buried, like Michigan State, USC. I think I wasn't at home, so I didn't have my my whole iPad situation. I think that game was on Peacock, though. They beamed it in on the screens there, and USC was able to win 70-64. And I mean, I don't even know if you were able to see this game, Hartzell, or not, but it was Spartans versus Trojans, and I believe the line from the play-by-play guy in the game, and apologies, I don't know who was on it, said it was a matchup 3,000 years in the making, which I thought was pretty good.
Clever. I mean, did I watch it? No, I did not, because the way my setup is, I can't quad box Peacock along with games that are on, linear cable.
Yeah, no, it's tough.
So it is a tough scene.
You gotta have the iPad on the side.
Yeah, you're right. Side pad. You gotta have a side pad. First conference loss of the season for Michigan State. That's notable. I see your Michigan State loss at USC and raise you Louisville at McCamish Pavilion. Look, like, we're going to talk ACC hoops here because Joe Ovies is going to join us. He's running a little bit late. He just texted me. But Louisville, the second best team in the ACC, the only other team besides Duke that's actually, ranked, goes on the road and loses at Georgia Tech. And I'm sorry, but that just can't happen. Georgia Tech basketball is bad. Okay, they're not good, and I do
have some players.
I have a Georgia Tech helmet over my shoulder. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've even got an unframed poster. It's framed. It's not on the wall. I need to fix that, of the old Thriller Dome, before they renovated it and turned it into what is now McCamish Pavilion. My point is, Louisville's up double digits at halftime, and they lose and just get absolutely smoked in the second 20 minutes. And I'm not getting excited about this because Georgia Tech's going absolutely nowhere. But that's a tough L for a Louisville team that had won 10 in a row previously. I don't know, man. Maybe they got fat and happy on their clippings, Norlander. Maybe you're to blame for this, for giving.
Without a doubt. I mean, this is like clockwork.
Going to sleepy McCamish Pavilion and just catch an L.
I would say 75% of the time, the lead team featured in the court report will lose its next game after it's featured. Yeah. And some of that is an understandable function of how these things work, because you usually have to be winning enough or doing something notable enough. So you've had to have enough sustained, good performances to warrant, being featured. And then, law of averages are going to say that you're going to lose eventually pretty soon. And so it makes sense why that would be the case. Louisville was victim there. There was also another big result that happened late Saturday. I brought up the old YouTube TV on my phone. Just audio. Wasn't watching. Too dangerous. But I was driving home from the studio late Saturday. St. Mary's hosting Gonzaga. So I listened to that.
You listened to the game on YouTube TV. So you had this makes me hurt, Norlander.
Correct.
You know we have an app for that. You can literally listen to all these games.
Yeah. No, I just pulled up the old ESPN broadcast. Sean Farnham. I think it was Dave Pash on the call with him.
Good crew.
And it was a really good crew. Yeah.
Gales.
I tell you though, it took so long for this. I'm driving home. It takes me about 40 minutes to get home from the studio. And I thought it's review after review, whatever. St. Mary's wins 62-58. St. Mary's has won 10 in a row. It's undefeated in the WCC. It's got a 3-game lead on Gonzaga. I haven't gone back and looked. I might do this. This might be a nugget in the court report. I think this is the first time St. Mary's has ever had a 3-game lead on Gonzaga in the WCC. I don't know if it ever happened. And certainly it's never happened this early in the season. So the Gales are well on their way to winning this league. Gonzaga will not. And Gonzaga now has, I guess we can maybe push this for later in the month, but Gonzaga is absolutely one loss away from real resume panic. Right now, Gonzaga, I would blindly guess Gonzaga's a 9, maybe a 10 right
Palm's
now.
Got him as a 9. That was before the weekend loss.
Palm had him as a 9. They lose. Yeah. Zags, maybe now there's you can either be the best 9 or the worst 9 or one of the middle two. So if they were the best 9, maybe they're clinging on to worst 9 status, but anything worse than that, then they might be on the better half of a 10. But it's a problem right now for Mark Few. And they had an opportunity, couldn't get it done. Mikey Lewis, who plays for St. Mary's, had a really, really good game. Is Ovies ready, or can I get into one more?
You got one more.
Okay. I got to give a shout to New Mexico. It wins 82-63 at Utah State. It does so and takes over the Mountain West lead. On a very busy Saturday, and we didn't really even get much into this on our Sunday Eye on College Basketball podcast. So let me give a little more love here. Richard Pitino's team is 18-4. He's got Donovan Dent, who I easily would rank among the top 25 to 30 players in the country, a veteran guard, and he's so critical to what they want to do. But beyond that, like Nelly Jr. Joseph, True Washington, he's got a good crew. New Mexico has only lost 1 game since December 7th. This program has not made the NCAA tournament in consecutive seasons since 2014. So Pitino's pacing them to do that. And in beating Utah State, New Mexico jumps Utah State and Ken Pom now. They're almost top 40. Utah State is a 19-3 team under first-year coach Jared Calhoun. It was a really good game in the Mountain West. Utah State had the lead early in the first half, and then New Mexico proceeded to run them out of the joint, and they changed it. I mean, they went on a 13-1 run and then an 11-1 run in the second half and just absolutely ran away with it. That's a good team, and give some props to a couple of quality programs there. That win, I think, if New Mexico does not win the Mountain West tournament, which it did last season, the win on the road against Utah State, which is a quality quad 1 victory, I think that's going to be the safety net for the resume to ensure that UNM gets into the tournament with some room to spare.
How many more bids is the Mountain West going to get than the ACC?
No, that won't be happening. But real quick, as we scan, New Mexico and Utah State are both pacing toward it. San Diego State should get there. Likely to be a 3-bid league. I did whiff on Boise State. It's a 15-7 program. I thought Boise State was going to be the best team in this league and to be a top 25 team for, like half the season. Hasn't been the case. The Mountain West can get so freaky deaky that it wouldn't surprise me if Boise State right now, which has won 2 in a row, it's at UNLV, home to San Jose State, at San Diego State, home to New Mexico, at Nevada. You tell me it wins, say, 4 of its next 5 to get to 19-8, then it's going to have a tournament resume as well. The Mountain West is capable of doing this kind of stuff, but I would predict that the Mountain West this season is going to be a 3-bid league, and the ACC will get at least 4.
At least 4?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the ACC is going to get at least 4. It seems pretty safely on its way.
Who's
ACC
the
is ranked
fourth?
5th. How about this? So the ACC is 5th overall in power conference and conference strength. Mountain West is 6th, but the ACC is closer to the Mountain West than it is to the 4th place Big East, and it's not. It's considerably closer to number 6 Mountain West than number 4 Big East is the ACC.
I'll give you Duke. I'll give you Louisville. I'll give you Clemson. Who's the 4th in the ACC, Norlander?
I think you're gonna get one of Wake Forest, UNC, or Pitt. This was a mailbag question in my court report last week. I think it was last week. If it wasn't last week, it was the week before where I got asked this, and because I think the question was maybe can the ACC even get 5, and I can't see 5, but 4 is going to happen. Duke, Clemson, Louisville likely, and then one of Wake Forest, UNC, or Pitt is going to do enough. I think just one team is going to wiggle out and emerge there and get it done. I do think the ACC will be a 4-bid league.
Palm has North Carolina in the first 4 out.
That was before.
Wake.
Now they're not even. Yeah,
he's got Wake going to Dayton to play your Lobos in the first 4.
Richard Pitino versus Steve Forbes might be the of any. If you went to Palm's bracket right now and looked at every single coaching matchup, there's going to be no better 1-2 coaching punch of funnier quotes in the country than Pitino and Forbes. So I like that.
He's got UConn, Texas Tech in an 8-9 game, by the way. Palm.
Yeah, again, this was before the weekend.
I know. Listen,
neither of those teams are as low as an 8 or a 9 now. I mean, UConn is at worst a 6, in my opinion, after winning at Marquette, and Texas Tech is probably a 7 now.
Listen, I love Jerry Palm. I've had him on CSN for years, but I mean, he hasn't updated this stuff since January 31st, and
that was only a few days ago. A bracket update is coming soon.
But like, what do you do? Like, like if you're an accountant and you get geared up for tax season, like I get it, you're on the clock, but like there is a time of the year where you are in demand, and I feel like once you flip it over to February, it's time. It's time. So anyway, let's hit pause on the discussion. We'll keep the ACC talk going. Joe Ovies joins the show coming up next. All right, as promised, we're going to head to the heart of ACC country. Joe Ovies kind enough to join the show. Joe, I think we had you on last year at this exact same time because we had like Grammy reaction and stuff. So if you got some Grammy takes, I'll let you get to those a little bit later. But I mentioned at the jump, I was teasing to our audience that you were going to join the show. I was like, Joe Ovies was at Cameron. He's going to give us some takes on Duke UNC. And Matt Norlander made the fart noise. It was like it was like a dismissive, like a
whatever. It wasn't the game. The game didn't register. Like it didn't. How about this? Duke Carolina didn't deliver as I sent to.
I need Matt to explain to me how you of all people got so jaded about the stuff that we cover that your general attitude going into a Duke Carolina game is shoulder shrug. Please explain that to me.
Going into it, it wasn't really shoulder shrug.
I listened to you guys. Zero buzz. You guys were more fascinated by John Calipari going to
yeah, because that was the more compelling story.
Okay. And it paid off. I mean, it paid off when Calipari wins. But then what? Arkansas still sucks. So like,
yeah, it does still suck without a doubt. But in the moment, it's just a bigger story. No, listen, we referenced this earlier in the show. It was interesting to see the amount of backlash that ESPN got for going to game day, which I don't fault it for game day going to Cameron. I really don't. They do it every single year. But it's like the point was Carolina is not good. Calipari will only return to Rupp Arena for the first time once. That only happens once there. And then the game happens and it's 40-15 in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So like Duke remains incredible and there's no one even close to its orbit in that conference. And yeah, there is a compelling fallout here, which is just a continuation of the story of Hubert Davis and his job situation. But on a weekend that was loaded with a lot of interesting results, I can't really remember the last time a Duke Carolina result was 7th, 8th, 9th in the pecking order of what was the most pertinent stuff coming out of the weekend nationally. That's where I land right now.
Because that's what you wanted. I mean, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's not what I wanted.
I'm actually making Matt Norlander the speaker for all of college basketball media. That's what I'm doing right now.
Yes.
And there's hold on. Now, go ahead. There is no possible way that you are going to go persecution complex on Duke Carolina with the amount of attention that got. Okay.
Right. I am, because a couple things. One, we got to log off. First and foremost, we got to log off. And all people do on the internet is complain. I mean, we're getting ready for a Super Bowl where people are like, I'm sick and tired of the Chiefs. Come on. What did they do to you? It's greatness. Let's watch greatness unfold. It's all rigged. Sure it is, guys. So I got an issue with that, right? I also have an issue with the idea that we're just forgetting that Duke Carolina is the unofficial start to the college basketball season. I mean, that's the entry point for a lot of people, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
that is the entry point for the start of the college basketball season for a lot of people. You know, especially for a sport that's constantly lamenting, how do we get people to watch our sport? Well, here is your entry point. So I'm not going to fault Game Day for going to there because that's what you traditionally do. Because for the majority of Americans, not the ones who are locked into their YouTube algorithm or their little podcast bubbles, for the majority of sports fans, that is your entry point. Hard stop. You cannot argue with me on this. All right. Then we get to the compelling aspect of this. Again, y'all act like I don't listen. We have been going all year about Cooper Flagg. Well, when are we going to get the Cooper Flagg moment? Is he really living up to the hype? Is it this? Is it that? All right, well, here is this rivalry game that everybody likes. And that dude put, as Joe Giglio, my co-host, likes to say, put it in Carolina's ear. Okay?
No doubt.
How is that not compelling? How is the freshman that we've all been hyping doing the exact thing we've been wanting him to do not compelling? Can you explain that to me, Matt?
It's not. I didn't say he wasn't compelling. Didn't lead the team in scoring, but had an awesome and amazing game. He has been doing this. He has been doing this for a number of weeks, and I never. By the way, to be clear, when Ovies is referencing, he's referencing Parrish. I never was like, "Where's the Cooper Flagg moment? Why hasn't it hit?" I maintained from the jump, it's coming, and it did. Literally, he brought it up, and it happened the next night against Pitt when he had the dunk that really. That's when everything flipped on all of that stuff.
But you did it yourself. Like, we didn't lead it in scoring. He's the reason why it was 34-13 in the first half.
It's tongue in cheek, and I'm working on a Knipple feature, so I got to say.
I see you.
There we go. So, yeah, no, listen, I wish the game had been better. I wish Carolina would have played the way that Hubert Davis indicated it was going to play at his press conference leading into it. That didn't happen whatsoever. And so now there is a crisis that seems to be elevating with every single game with that program.
Which gets to the other thing. You have a blue blood program going into soul search mode. You don't think that's compelling coming out of that result?
I do, but it was also there before the game happened, so it's not like this is a new development. It's just that the temperature raised another 5 to 10 degrees.
No, the thing is, see, where I'll disagree with you on that is you can project it, but it actually has to happen for you to really kickstart into that conversation. And to watch it unfold in real time the way that it did, it arrived. It arrived for Hubert Davis. It arrived for what I've been wondering out loud. And you and I have had this conversation, Stephen. I know you know this conversation about the direction of these two programs. And we did an event on Friday night. Stephen, you were there for it, so you can back me up on this. We did this thing called the Basketball Jones, featuring Bomani Jones. Tyler Hansbrough was there. Marcus Ginyard was there. Lavelle Moten from NC Central. Scott Wood from NC State. We're all hanging out, just one big fun conversation. But the premise of it, you know, because Bomani is a Duke hater. He's not a Carolina grad. He's just a Duke hater in the grand scheme of things. And the whole premise was about how what happened in 2022 basically ended the war. And I've been disagreeing with that for the last 3 years. It ended at chapter. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, for a certain subset of fans, generation of fans, that is the argument ender. But life moves on. You know, I even used Bomani loves The Wire. And I used the line from The Wire. Think about the old days, them the old days. And time marches on. And I think what's happening here is, once again, yes, Hubert Davis swept Duke last year. Yes, he's got 2022 in his back pocket. But Carolina fans have seen this before. Carolina fans, especially old-timers, remember when Bill Guthridge went to 2 Final Fours, and yet they saw the big picture of where things were going. That was Dean's recruits, Dean's leftovers, fulfilling these 2 Final Fours, having set up his guy. And much like Roy followed in the track of Dean Smith, we find ourselves in the same situation with Hubert Davis, where you're seeing as the remnants of that Roy Williams group goes away and you're getting the Hubert Davis guys in to try to mesh, people are seeing the big picture and wondering out loud, where is this going? And is Hubert Davis the right guy to be doing it? Much like they did with Bill Guthridge. So what's the line? Like, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of there with Carolina. And I think that's a very compelling story for a blue blood program that is going through an identity crisis. I don't understand why this is hard to grasp for people going into a game like this, unless you're also over Carolina and you'd rather go for the shiny object that is John Calipari going back to Kentucky, which I get for a one-off. But coming after that, what else is there to say? Congratulations, Cal. You went to Kentucky, you got yours, but your team still stinks. I don't think it's a compelling story going forward. So I think Hurley's more compelling up in UConn, because once you're the big dog, once you're at the top and you won back-to-back, what's your identity as not the guy who's fighting the cause, rebelling, going after the establishment? Dude, you are the establishment. So I think that's kind of interesting too. But Carolina also is in that boat coming out of this game.
So, Joe, let me ask you, if North Carolina is 13-10 overall, okay? They're in the middle of a pretty mediocre, if not down, ACC. What happens if they miss the tournament? What next?
I see this playing out two ways. I see it playing out two ways. Bubba Cunningham, AD at North Carolina, is going to go to Hubert Davis and have that come to Jesus conversation about the direction of the program. You're going to have to change up your staff. You're going to have to change up how you do things. We're going to have to establish general manager. We're going to have to play this NIL game, XYZ. And Hubert will adapt. Simple. That's easy, simple. You get your other year. We've seen this play out locally, specifically with football, over at NC State with Dave Doran. He had this low moment. Hey, we got to change up the staff. Otherwise, things are going to go in a different direction. He does. It pays off. Now we're in another cycle. But that's another conversation for today. We can have that conversation in August. So I think that's what's going to happen with Hubert. Now, the unknown to me is, does Hubert accept it? If Hubert doesn't accept it, well, then we have another conversation. Is there a mutual parting of ways? Does Bubba have to have a hard conversation with Hubert Davis and say, well, you know what? Then we're going to have to go in a different direction ourselves. So in an ideal world, in the way that I can see this playing out, either Hubert accepts this and gets another year or two to adapt and get that opportunity, or he resigns. I don't see him getting fired. He resigns. And that's a trendy thing to do right now. It would fall in line with what we've seen in college basketball. We saw at the beginning of the season with Tony Bennett, who looked at the landscape and said, hey, man, this ain't for me. I'm out. Jim Larinaga, who straight up quit in the middle of the season, looked around the landscape and said, man, I can't deal with this crap anymore. I'm out. I can see Hubert Davis going that route too, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I mean, remember, Duke's still going to Chapel Hill, man. Stranger things have happened. So we'll see what happens.
I agree. I think, that also how Carolina comports itself in that game leading into the ACC tournament. Can you win? Can you keep it competitive? Can you just avoid Cooper Flagg coming in and dropping a near triple-double on your head again? There's more to come with this. I 2 weeks ago, the idea of Hubert Davis really having any sort of true job security issues was almost unthinkable to me. But then UNC has continued to slide, and if the bottom really falls out, I'm not oblivious to the fact that that's very much on the table there. Duke, real quick on Duke from me, and Hearts will take it where you want before we gotta let Joe scoot out here. Are we getting to the point? I haven't sussed this out yet, but I did think about it this morning as I was prepping for the show. Are we getting to the point where this Duke team really has a ceiling where it's among the, 6 or 7 best Duke teams since Christian Laettner graduated? I'm wondering if we are approaching that point. It has been number 1 or number 2 in the metrics basically the entire season. Mm-hmm. Flagg has now moved into the conversation where he is registering as, I think right now, Flagg can fairly be evaluated as one of the top 8 one and done players. He can get higher. We got to see him do it down the stretch, but he's he's a national player of the year candidate. And we've only seen that from Zion Williamson, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant.
Sure.
He's there. So I think top 8 at minimum. And so I'm just curious if you think that this team really is trending toward that being among the better ones we've seen out of this program. There have been so many amazing ones. If they're getting to that top shelf level, or if you got to see a lot more still.
I think we need to see more. It's there. I don't disagree with you. I mean, everything's there for them. But if you were going to nitpick Duke at this point, it's the fact that beating this Carolina team at home, what does it really tell you? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that was a matchup advantage for Duke, straight up. I mean, they had no presence inside to deal with it. Because honestly, I thought the underrated player of Saturday's game was Mal Watch, who affected the game. I know the stat sheet showed 6 total rebounds in the first half. I think 4 of them were offensive rebounds, but Shire keeps his own deflection stat, and he affected play in ways that was impactful beyond just the obvious of Cooper Flag and whatnot. But that's key, right? You know, Gilio's been bringing up the 0-3 Syracuse comp for Duke, and that's there for them in how they're set up. So I don't disagree with you, but the problem is the best we've seen Duke play has been at home, right? So smashing Carolina, hey man, tip of the cap. Auburn, which I know a lot of people have arguments with, that happened at home, you know?
Yeah.
That happened at home. What's it going to look like when Duke plays Illinois on a neutral court? I think that's going to be the game, depending on how it goes, that'll truly launch Duke into the stratosphere of national title talk. Because so far it's been at home and it's been against an ACC that, to circle back to the victim complex, you notice you're not hearing that about me this year when it comes to the ACC.
Because you got no case.
No, I agree. Yeah. It sucks. Like I just
I did the research last week. I put in the court report the 10 longest AP top 25 droughts of all the power conference programs. 7 of the 10 longest droughts are teams currently residing in the ACC.
Dude, it's brutal. And Louisville didn't help. You know, we're sitting here going, hey man, here's Louisville. Louisville's a team that, you know, at least they're doing it at home. They've won on the road, which is important. And then they do something like mess themselves against Georgia Tech over the weekend. Like, that doesn't help, man. That really doesn't help.
Tough scene. Before we let you go, Joe, music's biggest night in the books. You got some Grammy takes, winners, losers. What'd you make of?
I mean, the biggest loser is Drake, is it not? I mean, Sunday starts with the Grammys, with Kendrick Lamar winning 5 Grammys for Not Like Us, and the entire crowd of the industry doing the A minor thing. Okay. And then you have to then go to the Super Bowl where he's performing at halftime. It's a rough week for our boy Drake. Okay. Well, he's not my boy. So yeah, rough week for Drake.
Kendrick, people pointed out he was wearing a Canadian tuxedo as he did this.
Brutal, man. Yeah. Just absolutely brutal for Drake. Because Kendrick's very, very smart with that. And then finally, I will maintain that 2024, you go back to 2023, but we really are on like the pop girl renaissance, which I think is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Obviously, Taylor Swift is the sun of this solar system, but Billie Eilish, Chappell Roan, Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, they're all putting out great pop music. And then I'm watching the Post Malone, Post whatever these guys are. They all look the same. They all sound the same. So like, I need somebody to like, is it Benson Boone? Is it this Teddy Swims guy? Is it Post Malone? They all freaking sound the same to me. I couldn't tell you.
This is not a criticism, but I would make the argument that even some of the women doing this are making better music, but even some of that stuff can feel a little bit homogenous to me. I'm looking for like,
they're just dropping pop bangers, which I think is fantastic. Everybody just decided, hey man, that Post Malone guy's pretty popular. What if we did that?
I know it is. I did. Yeah.
Where's my boy Jelly Roll? I mean, even he's in that mix, right? I didn't see him last night. And then I mean, good for Beyonce, but like y'all, I mean, that should have been her first Grammy.
for best album. Yeah.
Come on now. Come on. But yeah, man, I love the Grammys. I think they do a great job.
Last night was awesome. I actually thought the broadcast last night, start to finish, was one of the stronger ones I've seen in the past 10 to 15 years. Overall, just the performances, I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, it was all great stuff. And raised a lot of money for LA, which is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Thank you for the time, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Good luck with the summer camp registration. Okay. Parents know, man, once January comes around, you got to be on it, because if you snooze, you lose.
Yeah, dude. Plus, I mean, if my kid doesn't make the NHL, man, all this investment, I mean, what am I doing? I'm kidding, people. I'm kidding.
Listen to Ovies and Gilio, OG Triangle Media. They do a great, great job. I even hop on the show every now and then. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, later, guys.
Thank you, Joe. There you go. That's Joe Ovies. Very good stuff. And I love the banter. Just get you guys in a room, man. Just break a pool.
He loves to needle me, but like I feel like most of the time when he's needling me, he's going through me to get to Parrish. And I know what he's referring to because we did not get to Duke Carolina on the Sunday pod for CBS until the hour mark. But it wasn't a result that really carried that much significance in the context of the weekend. His big picture stuff is absolutely correct. Calipari and returning to Rupp was a 4-day build-up story, the game itself, and then it exists through basically today, and then we move on. Whereas the Carolina thing is much different overall. The Carolina stuff is a story that continues to build and will only get more pronounced the more UNC loses overall.
You'll get to me and Norlander's Grammy takes a little bit later. But before we get there, let's run through some of these midweek games that are must-see TV. You ready?
Let's do it.
Monday night, Iowa State, Kansas. It's the only one on the board.
It's the only truly notable matchup on the board, but it is must-see stuff. Reset this real quick here. Kansas has lost 2 of 3. It's lost 3 of its past 6. It's blown some games it had zero business blowing, and now it has the benefit of hosting this game against the Cyclones. And remember, Kansas lost at Iowa State just a couple weeks back, and it wasn't even close. Meantime, for the Cyclones and TJ Altenberger's program, they've lost 3 of 5 and have gone from a 15-1 program to a 17-4 program. 2 of its next 3 are on the road.
Wrong team favorite tonight. I'm going to call
Kansas.
that now.
I'm guessing Kansas is favored because it's at home.
Kansas is a 2.5-point favorite.
I mean, it's also Fog Allen, and then they've been gettable this season there, but I'm not going to say wrong team favored, but the number, you said 2.5?
2 and a hook. Watch out for the hook, kids. It'll get you.
That's a little big for me.
All right, Tuesday night, 6:30, Big East basketball back, FS1. Love the 6:30 tips. Marquette on the road at St. John's.
Yeah, baby.
Do you trust the Johnnies in this spot? Marquette just coming off of a home loss to UConn in which they never led and pretty much got kind of run wire to wire in their building by the Huskies. So Johnnies at home against Marquette. This is at the Garden, not Carnesecca. What you think?
I love that this is a 6:30 tip. If Tuesdays are the days that I really flesh out the court report. I'll get into it today, but Tuesday I spend most of the day, morning, afternoon, evening, writing the court report. I bring that up to say if I didn't, I would be at this game, but no dice here. I think St. John's is going to be ready and good to go. I give Marquette a very healthy chance at winning the game. Coming off the home loss to UConn, Shaka Smart's going to have his guys ready. St. John's, folks, has only lost 1 time since the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and it was a 1-point loss to Creighton. Not just that, St. John's has 3 losses by a combined 5 points this season. 3 losses, 5 total points.
Are the Johnnies going to be a top 10 team in the AP poll when that thing comes out this afternoon? I
would expect. You bring up a good point because there were so many ranked teams that lost. Yes, I think that will be the case. I think St. John's will be in the top 10. And read off some more. I'm going to look up and see the last time that was the case here. So go ahead, tell the folks what else is going on Tuesday while I check this out.
Well, you got Vanderbilt at Florida. I only bring up Vandy, and we didn't mention them losing to Oklahoma by 30 points. Largest win over a ranked team in Sooner program history. Oklahoma put up like 62 second-half points. It's just bananas stuff. Trae Young was not in the building in a Sooner jersey, but yet they still managed to just destroy Vandy. Florida looking to bounce back. I think they will, but where does Vandy go from here? Like just a demoralizing loss on the road. I still like Vanderbilt. I still think they're a good team. But Florida also coming off of a pretty lackluster performance, losing at Tennessee by 20. So you got Vandy, Florida. That is one of a handful of good games in the SEC. I can continue unless you.
No, I got you. St. John's. Last time St. John's was top 10 was the final regular season poll of the year 2000.
Wow.
And then if you want to get going into the 2000 tournament, and then prior to the last time they were in the top 10 at this point in the season, they were a top 10 team. Essentially from the first week of January through the end of the season in the 98-99 season. So good on the Johnnies. They're gonna break through there. Other games to know. Kentucky plays Mississippi at 7 Eastern on Tuesday night. That's an ESPN tip. And that is a super compelling matchup because Kentucky, and I'll probably have some more on the Wildcats in the court report, has dropped 3 of 4. This is a 500 team in the SEC. And I think it's going to wind up being a 500 team in the SEC by the time we get to that tournament starting there. Chris Beard's team has dropped 4 of 5 games. Okay. The Rebels are still easily in the tournament picture. Obviously 16-6 are in the SEC. They've got some good wins, but A more pressing game than I think people might realize going on Tuesday night, 7 Eastern on ESPN. What else do we have? Baylor, Texas Tech, 9 Eastern, ESPN2. We talked about both those teams earlier. That's really good. Some late tip intrigue.
I got one for you.
Give it to me.
We got the car fire of Indiana on the road at Wisconsin.
I mean, I'm not that interested.
Not interested.
Not that interested.
You're not interested in a potential mid-season job opening?
It's not going to happen then, though.
Okay.
And to what Ovies was talking earlier, I would say nationally there's a little more interest in the coaching situation in Indiana than North Carolina, but it's 1-2. They're really close.
Okay.
Indiana will not fire Mike Woodson if Indiana loses Tuesday at Wisconsin. It's too soon. Won't happen. If they lose at home to Michigan and then they lose at Michigan State, maybe we got something, but we're not there yet. It is getting loud. It's getting noisy. But no, that's not on my to watch list. What is Arizona at BYU, 11 Eastern Tuesday night. Tuesday night's loaded.
Yeah, Tuesday's attractive.
BYU's won 5 of 6. If it can win at home against Arizona, it might have something cooking. Maybe the Cougars can start turning things and become an NCAA tournament candidate. Not there yet. Got to win that. And then Peacock Special, 10 Eastern Tuesday night.
There you go.
Michigan State at UCLA. That's 2 teams that are top 30 quality. The Bruins have been hot as of late, have won 5 in a row, really figured stuff out. They did not play over the weekend here, but they've got this game, and then they've got Penn State at home before they got to fly to the Central Time Zone. Cronin's going to be pissed about that. See if they can get some wins before that situation changes. Michigan State just lost at home. At USC and had not lost prior to that since Maui. So we'll see if the Spartans can avoid a 1-2 sweep on the West Coast. That's your Tuesday games tonight.
Cronin's been quiet lately. I'm just glad on that road trip that they don't have to see Statue of Liberty.
I know. Don't let him peek out that window and see that Statue of Liberty. He'll lose his mind.
I mean, don't fly low over Vegas either, because they got a Statue of Liberty there.
True.
I mean, I don't want
New York,
Cronin
New York
to freak out. And he looks out his window, he sees the mini Statue
Oh,
of
that's
Liberty.
a great call.
It's even smaller than the real thing. Wednesday, Oregon, Michigan. This would be a way better football game than basketball game. Although, Michigan, I mean, that's an under-the-radar Big Ten team.
It's quasi under the radar. They've been getting some attention. They're 16-5.
They're
Hosting
more
an Oregon
under the
team.
radar now than they were in November and December. Would you agree?
They're more under the radar now?
Yes.
No, I disagree. I think they were more under the radar in November.
Okay.
But I'm a little bit skewed on this because I had Michigan top 20 in the country going into the season and no one else did. And they are 20th at Ken Palm as we speak right now this morning. Oregon lost again on Sunday. Lost at home to a just okay Nebraska team. The Ducks have dropped 3 in a row in 4 of 5. Astute readers will recall that I identified Oregon a few weeks back as a team to fade for a number of reasons. This is exactly what's happening. I would not have predicted a home loss to Nebraska, but now they got to play at Michigan State. So Oregon's slip sliding here. Was a comfortable NCAA tournament team. It's still in the field. I mean, it's got to win over A&M, San Diego State, Alabama. It's got to win against Maryland. It's got some good victories on the schedule, but I'd avoid piling up too many losses here. That's a good Wednesday matchup with some real urgency to it. Illinois, by the way, plays at Rutgers. Not really a must-see kind of game, but Illinois did win at home on CBS on Sunday over Ohio State. Did so in runaway fashion, which I thought was important as Illinois has battled, being consistently healthy, and then Brad Underwood changed up his starting lineup. It wound up working. They got to win, and now they got to play at Rutgers, at Minnesota. Their next 2 games, those are not good teams. Illinois, if you're actually a Final Four contender, go on the road and win those games. What else stands out to you on Wednesday?
I think you're sleeping on Missouri, Tennessee. We did not mention Mizzou going to Mississippi State and winning by nearly 30 points, but that's what happened on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to sit up in my seat and start paying attention to Missouri basketball. Like that.
Yes, you do.
This is a real thing. Can you go on the road? It's not Thompson Bowling Arena anymore. It's something called Food City Center, which
I won't recognize it.
That's a tough. I understand.
I'm not going to call it that. You're never going to get me to call it that.
they're backing up the money truck for you to call it the Food City Center, but come on, Tennessee. It's always going to be Thompson Bowling Arena to me, damn it. Missouri 17-4. They're 6-2. They're one of the top 4 teams statistically, not statistically, but in terms of the standings right now in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
So that is, considering how much of a just absolute disaster they were last year, that's pretty awesome stuff from Dennis Gates.
I'll tell you, take you behind the curtain here.
Let's do it.
It's Mizzou at Tennessee. If that was Tennessee at Mizzou, I'd probably feature Missouri at the top of the court report this week, be giving Dennis Gates a call this afternoon.
Wow.
But if I call him today and give them 900 words of shine on Wednesday morning, and then they go out and they're going to lose on Wednesday at Tennessee, I can't do that to the guy. Let's spare him the jinx. That's all. Let's spare him the Norlander Riders jinx. If they can get the win there, then I'll give the love next week. But I can't do that to Mizzou.
All right, that's I've just emptied the clip on the basketball talk.
Arkansas plays at Texas. We'll see if they actually got something going on or not. 9 Eastern, Wednesday night, ESPN 2. So just keep an eye on that as well.
Okay. We end the show with music talk, as we always do. Now spitting Grammy takeaways. I managed to stay up until about 10:30 Eastern time. When did this thing end? Midnight?
I stayed up for the whole thing. It did feel longer than usual. I can't give you an exact time. I want to say 11:45.
Golly.
I feel like it was 11:45 at night.
My biggest takeaway, Krungbin got absolutely robbed in the Best New Artist category.
We know. Krungbin was my favorite artist in the Best New Artist. We knew there was no shot it was winning.
We knew there was no shot when they're coming out of commercial break and there's just a cold open of Krungbin on the stage. And
That's
I'm like,
correct.
Wait. Those
my
are
wife
my
goes,
guys.
who is
Those are
that?
my
I was like, you know who
peoples.
that is? That's Krungbin. And she's like, oh, yeah. And she also likes their stuff. There was no ladies and gentlemen Krungbin. It was just boom. They're mid-jam. And they gave him, I want to say they gave him a good 90 seconds of airtime.
I was going to say like 2 minutes, but either way, that got just absolutely just poured over by just, you already had the Chapel Roan, but you had my man, what's the guy with the glasses and the face tats? Like, you just had, like, all these other best
Teddy
new
Swims?
artists. Yes, Teddy, who's from Georgia, apparently. I had no idea he's from Conyers, Georgia. Try to look after my own people that way. But regardless, Krungbin, robbed, loaded category. The Weeknd returned to the Grammy stage. Who cares, man?
I didn't even know he had boycotted the Grammys.
Like, that's your surprise?
I had no idea.
Weeknd's coming out of retirement, please. Who cares? And good for Beyonce, but this is a long time coming. If it wasn't for your boy Beck a couple years ago, Beyonce would have already had a best album.
Which
Grammy?
Oh, did Beck?
Beck was one of the snubs. It was Taylor Swift one year. That was most famously when Kanye came and took the mic.
No, that was the VMAs. That wasn't the Grammys.
Are you sure?
I'm like 96% positive, and that was like 2011. Like that was forever
right.
ago.
I think that was the VMAs. Thank you for the fact check live. But Beck beating Beyonce was
that for Morning Phase? That Beck record is really good. That must have been. He won for Morning Phase. He won Best Album, and that was a good album. Man, it's been a decade since that album came out.
It was 2015. Yes.
Gosh, man, that's brutal. That's just been that long. That is a good.
Kanye interrupted that acceptance speech as well, by the way.
I think Kanye got kicked out of the Grammy red carpet last night, by the way. I wasn't all up on it, but I saw.
Well, his wife was wearing something that, was not appropriate for red carpet attire. She wasn't wearing anything, frankly. So, anyway.
I'll repeat what I said with Ovies. I thought the actual show, start to finish, was among the better ones of the past 10 to 15 years. Didn't have a singular performance that I think resonated the way that we had with Fast Car last year, which seemed to really get a lot of buzz, immediately. This was more just one really good performance after another. The Quincy Jones tribute, which felt like it was close to 20 minutes, was really good. You had Herbie Hancock, who my man's looking tremendous. He's in his 80s and still has it. Herbie Hancock and Stevie Wonder sitting with each other, jamming out, was good. Some folks have made some of the fact that Stevie Wonder said, you look up, you see these pictures of Quincy Jones, and people are like, really, Stevie?
You're supposed to be blind, sir.
As if they couldn't have told him, hey, listen, you want to direct the people and let them know. I think Stevie Wonder is all too aware of the bit at this point and is leaning into it. For as fun as it is to maybe be in that conspiracy camp, sorry, I'm just not going to buy
What
into
you're
the
saying
fact
is,
that
Norlander,
a kid has been faking a man has been faking his blindness since the age of 3, 4, 5, 6 years old.
Stevie Wonder has been seeing and reading what people have been saying about him on social media. He's been reading the articles. He's been seeing the memes, is what you're saying.
Janelle Monáe she's a dynamite, man.
I saw her open up for Gnarls Barkley in Atlanta. This would
Wow.
have been like 2003, maybe. I mean, she was I don't want to say she was a nobody, but she was. I mean, there were 750 people in that place. Wild. She's a star.
She's got it. She's got it. There's a lot of talent on that stage last night. I thought like Sabrina Carpenter stuff isn't for me, whatever, but I recognize what it is. But her performance was tremendous. Shakira, did you make it through Shakira, or did you tap out before Shakira?
I saw the clips this morning.
Shakira she went for it all the way, and good for her. Hers felt like the most daring isn't the right word, but she was like doing this, like walking between the tables of some of the most famous people in the world. Like there was
48 years old too, by the way.
I know
like,
she's
what?
a really, really awesome, like a great performance. Charlie XCX. I don't know what was happening. I still don't quite understand Brat. I'm not supposed to understand Brat, but all I know is that performance brought the house down. That was really, really notable. Really
Charlie
cool.
XCX could walk into this lobby today, and I would be like, "Can I help you?"
Yeah, I know.
This is a company that works in college sports. Would you like a tour? Like, I don't know who you are.
Women dominated the night as they should, and then the best new artist presentation. If they've done this before, I just don't remember it. But they had every single if they've done it, I tell you, it's never been this long. They had every single best new artist perform. One after the other, with the exception of Krungbin, which just did its thing and had its jam. And then I think we went to Trevor Noah for a minute. And then it started with Benson Boone. Didn't know who this guy was, but it looks like he could be in Goose, first of all, with that ironic stash. And then the dude does a flip off the piano and then does another couple of flips mid-song. It was extremely impressive from a physicality standpoint. The song is what it is. It's fine. There was one after the other.
Well, as a skier, I think those were more of like misty flips, weren't they? I mean, those weren't just like straight head over heels. They were like twisted.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. Yeah,
pretty sure that was like a 720 misty flip.
Yeah, that was yeah. It was impressive, but
hey,
overall,
Boone, I thought, can you play a piano? That would be my question for you, sir. Can you actually play a piano? You just out here to do flips in front of J-Lo, who was at his table. I didn't understand that one either.
I didn't know what was going on with J-Lo. I saw Heidi Klum there. I'm pretty sure she's married to a music mogul. But yeah, I don't know. Jim Gaffigan randomly made an appearance. I wasn't sure what that was about, but
Trevor Noah, I will say this: he's done a lot of Grammys. I think that was his 5th. He is very good. Okay, he's like the Reese Davis of Grammys. Like, that guy can do it all, man. He is. That's a tough gig.
Yeah, it's a tough gig.
Made it look pretty easy.
It's a little, it's tough. Yeah,
not as tough as the Oscars, but still tough gig. I was impressed with Trevor Noah. So there you go. And I thought
Doechii also best rap album. She had a great performance. Really, really good speech. A couple of really good speeches. Overall, I was satisfied with the Grammys more than I thought I might have been. So
sounds like a B- Grammy night.
No, I'd say it was that was like a B+.
Okay.
B+. Overall, like just to sit down, watch it as I'm doing a little hoop stuff, some prepping for the week. Overall taking it in. Yeah, it was good. Even if like we don't need to be using these award shows to reinforce or validate our opinions and affirm anything. Like it's art. The idea that we're gonna subjectively judge art on this kind of level has always been silly. But that said, I understand why they do mean something to a lot of people. But the Grammys are never going to inform my tastes. That's just not the thing.
Okay, very good. On that note, folks, we wrap up the show.
Hey, I got our now spinning for later this week, by the way.
Okay.
I watched the SNL 50 Years of Music doc. Have you seen it or no?
I've seen parts of it.
If you can get to all of it, get to it. If not, let's dig into that a little bit on Thursday.
Okay. There will also be Super Bowl predictions. I may or may not print out some prop sheets because I'm old, and that's what old people do. They print the internet. But Super Bowl picks. We'll be back on Thursday with some more college basketball talk. Norlander will book a guest for that show.
Sure,
In addition to talking about the SNL music montage. There you go. Folks, thanks for listening. Thanks to Joe Ovies for joining us. For Norlander, I'm Hartzell. See ya!